everybody, and welcome in. It is time for Three Guys Before the Game, our first in-season edition, episode officially number 45 of Three Guys Before the Game, also known as the post-Tennessee edition. Welcome in. Tony Caridi along with the Dean, Hoppy Kercheval, and the Senator, Brad Howe, as we come together in unison to join hands and sing Kumbaya, because what took place on Saturday afternoon into Saturday evening in Charlotte was nothing more than just a good, feel-good experience for everyone around. West Virginia goes out, lays wood, 40-14, potentially as good as we could have hoped for in that game. A lot of pieces to break up and to analyze coming out of that, and a lot of things that we need to break down. Gentlemen, are we all joining hands in hands and singing Kumbaya? Now, Hoppy, you were back in your days. They actually did do that.
Yeah, at 4-H camp, sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Tony, sports are about expectations and realizations. And heading into the season, you have 8 months to create expectations, not only the team and the players and the coaches, but the fans. And then you play a game, and then you see if you realize those expectations. I got to tell you, you come away Saturday, and you realize the expectation. Now, it's a long season, and many times you come away from that first game. How many times have we come away from a first game, well, don't know anything, who knows? Second game, don't know anything, not sure. No, You realized expectations very early. Now, again, you got a bunch more games to play, but what can you say after that first game other than that, everybody expected that, and that's what they did?
It's amazing. Hoppy references that offseason. We spent hundreds of hours in the offseason talking about things, right? Could happen. And they all did. That offense was as explosive as we thought it could be. There were as many multiple weapons as we thought there could be. Hey, the tight ends were a factor. That actually came through. The defensive line was as good as advertised, at least through 1 week. So that's really what amazed me, is not so much that West Virginia won 40-14, because as Hoppy said, expectations were high for West Virginia, low for Tennessee. That's exactly what West Virginia needed to do in the opener. But I was surprised how many offseason storylines actually hit in week one and came true.
And I agree with everything you're saying. Keep this in mind. Bino Cook would have turned 87 years old on Saturday, the godfather of college football. And he had a bunch of sayings and a bunch of lines. One of the things he said this time of the year, I think we all always need to hold on to it and take it. He said, you really don't know. You really don't know about a team until a minimum of 3 games and probably 4 games. After that, then you truly know. So I agree with you. Right now, everything looks as though what we had said during the offseason can come true, and it looks very positive. However, you really don't know, because pieces will change, teams will change, and already as we get into this one, we're going to talk about a season-ending injury right off the bat at a position where West Virginia could not afford to lose someone at linebacker. It has happened. Charlie Benton, who was playing in his first game at West Virginia, a transfer, suffers a season-ending knee injury, and now that will lead to a bunch of decisions in the WVU defensive side as to how they're going to handle that.
Well, I'm not sure this isn't a next man up scenario for West Virginia, because I don't know that there's a next man. They were already so limited at that position with the injuries to Ferns and Quandarius Qualls that there just isn't numbers of guys. There's not bodies. That's why I've said earlier, I said it Saturday during our broadcast, I'm not so sure Tony Gibson doesn't have to make an alignment switch to a 4-man front. You saw that you have a bunch of defensive linemen that can play. You saw him employ a 4-man front at times on Saturday. That tells me it's in the plans. They've been working on it, and it's something they could conceivably do. It might have to become more of a base defense rather than a once-in-a-while type of thing, given these holes at linebacker now.
Before you get to that, though, Tony, you'd rather be in this. You're right. Maybe it's going to take a couple of games maybe to know your team for certain, but you'd rather be in the position you're in now than underperforming on Saturday. So you're still in the best position possible, number one. Number two, you've also raised expectations of fans. I did an unscientific Twitter poll on my public affairs program earlier today.
You still doing that show?
I am.
Okay.
I do it.
Good,
I do
good,
it. It airs Sunday morning at 6 a.m. on those stations.
Do a nice job with that.
Based on Saturday's performance, how many games will West Virginia win this season? 57% say 8 to 10. 26% say 10 or more. So you have more than 80% of the people think West Virginia going to win 8+ games. So expectations, even though Las Vegas said 7.5 before the season began, expectations, which were already high, have gone even higher after Saturday.
Well, they should. They should, and here's why.
Well, you were 10. You're going up to 11 now?
I'm still at 10. But and you know my thing. I'm with you on what Bino Cook said. You know my big thing is here. Don't try and assign season-long trends after 1 week. Although
Yes.
let's spend the next half hour doing just that. But what encourages me from a West Virginia standpoint is I know Tennessee has a long way to go, but what they do have is size, athleticism, and guys. This wasn't, all due respect, the Youngstown State game where I don't know that we can learn a lot about West Virginia coming up this coming Saturday, but coming out of week 1 against a roster full of size and athletes, I thought West Virginia acquitted itself as well as it could in week 1 against that competition.
Okay, but you say you can't assign trends, but look at it this way. Instead of a brand new season, the trend offensively is the same as last year. I mean, you have the same guys. You have Will Grier. You have many of the same receivers. You've actually you're deeper at receiver. And so you're not looking for a new trend. You're continuing and improving on a trend that started last year.
So he caught you there.
Yeah, you can't accept.
went
Okay,
back.
that's a great point. What happened in the last 3 games of West Virginia's season last year?
Well, I don't think Will Grier played.
Okay, Will Grier didn't play, so you couldn't assign a season trend early to West Virginia's season and have it stay at the end. Things change all season.
Well,
You've got to take it week to week.
You can't account for things changing like that. I mean, I'm saying the trend.
They do, though.
But
They do change, so that changes the trend.
Of course, they do change.
Then that changes the trend.
Point
But
of
nothing's
order.
happened yet. It's a continuation of what you saw last season with Will Grier so far.
Right, and if somebody goes down on Saturday, then that trend from Tennessee didn't continue to week 2, did it?
Well,
so you can't assign a trend.
If there's an earthquake at Milan Puskar Stadium, they're not going to play there Saturday
Right,
either.
and the trend didn't continue.
Point of order. I'll be the judge that'll come in here. Mr. Howe, seated in the middle, your argument is rubbish. Mr. Kercheval is simply making the point. The premise is that when Will Grier is running the offense, West Virginia will perform well. That's your point.
That's
correct,
my
Mr.
point.
Kercheval?
That's my point.
As a result, he has now thrown for 300 or more yards in 9 of his 12 starts at West Virginia. And in all seriousness, you know this and Brad knows this. When he's out there, they average about 40 points a game. Last year it was 39, so he hits 40 again. So, obviously, if he stays in there, you've got the potential to be right around that 37 to 40 points on a good day. And if
Dana
he has
wants 45.
I understand.
And I think that's reasonable.
I understand.
You know what I find interesting about this team is to look forward, because I kind of viewed them coming in offensively as Oklahoma State from last year. A really talented receiving core with a pro quarterback and a good running game. The question to me now is, can West Virginia go from looking like Oklahoma State last year to looking like Oklahoma with really good running backs and a really good stable of receiver, and not just a pro quarterback, but the best quarterback in college football, and then a really talented offensive line? Because the difference to me between Oklahoma State last year and Oklahoma was a team that was pretty good in Oklahoma State to one that made the playoffs in Oklahoma. Can West Virginia have all of those pieces working all year and make that jump from Oklahoma State to an Oklahoma lookalike?
Agreed. You know what was really big Saturday is that, and Brad, you cited this statistic, that West Virginia last year had, 14 quarters where they didn't score. Is that
Correct.
right?
14 scoreless quarters last year.
And last year, that offense at times would disappear. You go, what happened? And you go, nothing would happen. And West Virginia Tennessee had that big long drive, used up 9 minutes in the second quarter. West Virginia didn't have the ball. They were sluggish there, and then they had a 3 and out. And it was 13-7 at the half. You had an hour and a half halftime, and they go, oh my gosh, what are you going to have here? And you had the Tennessee coach coming out and telling CBS, we coached them up the whole time. You had Dana coming out saying, well, we had something to eat and watch the Texas game. And,
Is that what he said?
That's what he said.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
They
Got
came
him
out.
something to eat, watch some football. Coached some, but didn't coach them the entire 65 minutes.
And West Virginia was 0 for 3 on third down in the first half, and we're all sitting there going, we're worried. Everybody's worried. They came out in the second half. Second half, they were 5 of 6 on third down. They scored on the touchdowns on the first 3 possessions and ran them out of there. I thought that was huge, the way they performed in the second half.
2 points to what you guys are saying. So, in essence, what you said initially was that for West Virginia to become Oklahoma-like, that Will Grier needs to become Baker Mayfield like, in other words, just scintillating.
The elite of the elite.
The elite of the elite.
Which he looked like on Saturday.
Yeah, he did.
And I think the reason they didn't score in 14 quarters last year was what you just touched on, was their inability to convert consistently on third down.
33%.
So they go from 0 of 3 in the first half to 5 of 6 in the second half, and they'll take 5 out of 9 for the rest of the season if they can have that percentage. I think those are the biggest things. Third down is the single biggest thing they worked on in the offseason to convert.
So to continue this comparison a little further is something to watch throughout the year. Last year, Oklahoma led the country and led college football history, the best yards per play ever in the history of college football, 8.1 yards per play for that offense. You want to take a guess on what West Virginia's yards per play was on Saturday? 8.1. 8.1. So if West Virginia continues, and that's hard to do, continues that pace from Saturday, it will match the best offense in college football history. That will give it a shot to be around this national discussion come November.
Yeah. Okay, let's jump into personnel positions here and do some stuff here on the receiver side. How good did T.J. Simmons look going down that sideline?
Not only did T.J. Simmons look good, now put it on a bell curve. As your fourth receiver, how good did T.J. Simmons look? That's the embarrassment of riches on this offensive side. I mean, he looked really good. He looked like a guy that Alabama would recruit and did. I mean, that's a fantastic add-in to the stable of receivers.
You know, there's guys that go down the sideline, and then there's guys that go down the sideline. He looked like he was on air on the sideline. He floated down. There's just a different level.
And they had 11 guys that caught passes. 11 guys. 2 of them are tight ends.
Targeted 4 times. Targeted 4 times to the tight ends.
And we went into, and Brad had a great theory that they're not throwing to the tight. This is all smoke and mirrors. And they threw to the tight end. Wesco caught 2, and Haskins caught 1. And now, if you're a defensive coordinator, what's that do? You got other stuff you got to worry about. You got to worry about the tight end.
Out of you.
Well, what scares them is this. It's not necessarily that they're throwing the ball to the tight end. It's the tight formations that West Virginia started to use. I mean, they started to bring everyone tight in. That, talking post-game there, that is a huge concern for opposing teams. Now they look at West Virginia and they go, okay, these guys can bunch everybody in, including tight ends and their receivers in a tight formation. Okay, what are we going to do there? Then they'll go like, okay, now put them sideline to sideline and spread them out.
All right, now
that's
go
hard.
Now, yes, you're exactly right. Now go further, because here's the one that jumped out to me. All the highlight plays that jumped out to me, they go to the double tight end. I believe it's a double tight end formation. So that shows you, okay, you want to try and blitz? Come on with it, because we got 2 more big boys to protect the franchise. Come on with it with your blitz. And then they bring it, and the tight end becomes the hot receiver, and he slips, and it was that jump pass that Kansas State runs without the jump. Greer didn't physically jump in the air, but he just stood there and went, okay, blooped it over the top. Wesco picks up yards. You're going to do that to teams? In addition to what you're saying, spreading them out across the middle and deep, you're now going to go tight, show a blocking coverage or a protection formation, and release and throw to the hot receiver? Good night, man.
Yeah.
Good night.
It took 9 guys from Tennessee. They may have had a 10th to bring Wesco down on that second catch. I mean, it was kind of like the big bully kid that when you play sandlot football, like everyone tries to grab his ankle and he's dragging kids. He's a big old daddy.
And he's not the receiving tight end of the group.
And you know who's tough to bring down is Letty Brown.
Yes. Impressed by him.
I mean, he was not easy. I mean, he went 33 yards, but he was tough to bring down.
Brown and Sinkfield both showed why the coaches and teammates are excited by those guys. They got a great lean forward, and they're going to be very, very talented. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. And Petaway obviously was given the opportunity, and he did not disappoint there at all. So
hold on real quick before you jump past there. One thing more on the running backs.
Yep.
I want to revisit an off-season theme from 2 years ago. Remember, 2 years ago, we didn't talk about tight ends catching the ball. We talked about receivers catching the ball out of the backfield. They're going to use the receivers more. You're going to get the ball in the hands. And you didn't do that last season. That never came out last season. You saw it on Saturday, right? You saw McCoy out of the backfield slipping on the little wheel route for the touchdown. You saw Sinkfield wheel route to the other side that you missed on the pass. But the running backs were even engaged. To your point, there's 11 guys catching balls. Receivers were engaged in the passing game as well. Literally every facet of the offense was on display Saturday.
It was. On the receiver side, David Sills was David Sills, and he's David Sills. There is, he's moved into 4th place all-time touchdown receptions at West Virginia with 22.
That's amazing.
Equaling himself with Chris Henry. So he's got a chance to catch a whole lot more as the season goes on. So he's as good as advertised. Gary Jennings, long picture on him now. from where he was coming in. They always liked him a lot, but he is a guy that every season has taken another step up a ladder. And last week, he made a couple of catches there. The touchdown catch, that was really, really a great catch. It wasn't necessarily thrown to where he was looking initially. He flipped around, he caught that ball. And then the second one that he caught on that inside route, it came in over the shoulder of the corner, and it was about knee-high by the time he caught it. Those are just game-changing receptions. So those guys looked really, really good.
But Tony, on the Stills, on the one he dropped. I mean, most tension's actually on the one he dropped in the end zone. But I wish you could get a shot of when the ball came in there to Stills and see if you could fit
a credit card.
Yeah, in
right?
there.
That was unbelievable.
Among those Tennessee players. That was a big-time throw. And I know that Stills was off balance a little bit, but my goodness.
Go to Gary Jennings, back to him for just a second, because Stills is clearly the guy that gets the majority of the pub. They look for him down along the red zone. You see him when you get close is the guy Greer is trying to find for a touchdown. 12 of his 18 catches last year were from the red zone in, so that's what he does down there. Jennings continues to be unbelievable. Here's a stat from last season, Tony. 50 first down receptions last year for Gary Jennings. Wow. That was the 7th most in all of college football. So how about that 1-2 punch? Stills around the end zone, you look for him, but you got Gary Jennings when you need a big catch. He's your guy.
Are you saying a trend from last year continues this year? Is that what you're saying? I think that's what you're saying. Exactly.
I gave you a stat from last season.
Yeah, I understand.
That's what I was just giving you.
Yeah, well,
I didn't say it was going to happen in November.
That was my reference.
I said it was last year. I gave you a flat-out stat from all of 2017.
Early on in the season, Hoppy's got you twice, just smacked you right in the head twice. I mean, just reared back, smacked you, laughed at you, hit you in the face.
I don't concede on those 2 points,
Took away your candy.
I don't concede that.
Here's another number. Gary Jennings was the only player in the last 20 years that caught more than 80 passes and had less than 2 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
I know, that was amazing. It
was
good to see him get in the end zone.
But he got his one last year in the opening game, so now you got to find him some more.
You'd have Brett talked at an embarrassment of riches, but also an embarrassment of riches of how they played. I know we're going to get to the defense and the linebacker issue. He had 4 penalties. That's pretty good too for first game. Yeah, you look at the stats for other teams. There's a lot of teams had 9 penalties, 8 penalties, 10 penalties. I think Tennessee had 6, which wasn't bad for Tennessee for a team with an entire new coaching staff and a new scheme. But West Virginia only had 4 penalties.
Evan Staley, solid as a rock, kicking off and with his field goals. And Billy Kinney got 1 blocked, but he had a 53-yard bomber. All right, let's jump over onto the defensive side. And as I said, this is kind of more a kumbaya session than anything else. Everything looked good. Obviously, there are pieces that need to be fixed, but the defensive line that was so talked about in the offseason and also so talked about were the additions of Kenny Bigelow and Jabril Robinson. And on the very first series, Kenny Bigelow goes, "This is how 5-star guys play," and came across the line and absolutely gave a kidney shot to Jarrett Garantano and sent him down, sent a backward pass out there, loss of yardage, and that kind of set the tone.
Yeah. We've mentioned Alabama a couple times during this. So the center, Brandon Kennedy from Tennessee, Alabama transfer, first play of the game. Kenny Bigelow absolutely made it look like it was me trying to block Kenny Bigelow. Just threw Kennedy to the side and drilled Guarantano, as you referenced right there. I mean, you needed an indication early on how that was going to look, you got it right away. But, oh, by the way, he wasn't the only one. You sub him out, bring Darius Stills in. So there's another offseason conversation that you heard so much about. Darius Stills was the surprise of late last season, and he was great in the spring. And Darius Stills. He was a beast as well. He ate Brandon Kennedy up a couple of times. 2.5 tackles
for loss.
Yeah.
So that nose guard position has gone from a huge unknown to it looks like it could be a position of strength. We'll see, but at least through one game against big-time competition, they're very good.
Yeah, because one game doesn't make
Can't make a trend.
No, exactly. But in Stills' case, that's what Gibby told us when we had him in here in the offseason. He said that kid was absolutely dominant during spring ball. All right, Ezekiel Rose played well. Jabril Robinson, again, showed that he's going to be a very big-time contributor. Dante Stills also got in there, got himself his first college statistic.
Keep going.
Reese Donahue.
Yeah.
That was a big boy sack. He just didn't sack the old boy. He grabbed him around the shoulder and threw him down like a wet doll.
Well, back up before he got to the quarterback. He took on a double team from an SEC offensive line, split the double team, then got to the quarterback and then destroyed him.
Yeah,
so how many defensive linemen there did you just mention?
6.
You were 6 deep before you got to a guy in Reese Donahue that made one of the more impressive
When was
plays.
the last time West Virginia had 12 tackles for loss?
You have to look it up. I don't know.
I asked that knowing we don't know that, but I mean that's almost unheard of.
We can find that. Yeah, we can look in last week's notes. Jeffrey Pooler was also out there.
He was
taking snaps as well. So that's the front of the defense. Now let's go back. Linebacker. So David Long is David Long, right?
Mm-hmm.
He just flies all over
around.
the place and makes tackles. Just for those of you that don't follow this really closely, and you just kind of jump in here at some point, unless you're into the details on this, you may not have known that West Virginia lost 2 linebackers to injury before things ever got started. Quandarius Qualls, senior, was a kid that they thought was really going to turn his bulb on this year, a junior college transfer who played last season. He goes out with a knee. And then Brendan Ferns, the young man from St. Clairsville, he also, again, is sidelined with a knee. So you already were -2 personnel-wise at that linebacker position. And you go out here now and you lose Charlie Benton. He was ranked as the 5th best outside linebacker among junior college players by ESPN last year. He's also offered by Iowa State coming in. He goes out. He starts at the Sam Backer spot and injures his knees, out for the season. So now, just if you look at the depth chart, you got a true freshman in Josh Chandler. I'm just talking backups at linebacker. Adam Hensley is a junior out of Centerville, Ohio. Shea Campbell is a junior from here in Morgantown who was awarded a scholarship during camp. And those are your Strong Mike and your Willies. And if you just want to throw a couple more names out there, but he's too small, DeMonte Lindsay is the backup at Spur at 6'1", 207 pounds. So as Brad was saying earlier on, Tony Gibson, who has now at least the opportunity and showed some 4-down defenses, maybe he goes 4-2, 2 linebackers with that Spur back being that kind of hybrid position, and then your 2 safeties and 2 corners.
It would make some sense, wouldn't it? You've got multiple guys along the front that can play, and you're really thin in the back. So not only do you need to try and save and conserve some energy for those guys, but just from a personnel standpoint, it would make some sense, especially given that they've clearly worked on that. As you just mentioned, they went to that alignment a few times during the game. Had they not done that at all in the spring and the offseason, that's a hard switch between week 1 and week 2. But the fact that that's already installed leads you to believe you might just have to see that a little more often given the personnel.
And there's so much pressure when the 3-3-5, there's so much pressure on the linebackers to make tackles, to be preeminent in the defense, because the front guys in the 3-3-5 are just kind of take up space and don't let those offensive linemen get past you and block the linebackers. So, Gibby's a smart guy. I mean, work some magic here, figure something out.
Corners, safeties, grade?
Grade? I got to go back and watch again. I need some more tape on them.
He's got
need some more tape.
That's a football guy right there.
I think I'll say this from an overall big picture, good standpoint. I don't remember ever referencing them a bunch during this game. So I think that's generally a good sign. And Tennessee's not going to be a team that was going to line up and air it out and really test those guys. So I think the fact there weren't huge, giant, busted coverages, fact we were calling out cornerbacks all day, I think that's a good start for them, but we certainly need more evidence to see how they're going to be.
And on that point, I mean, they kept Garantano kind of in check. I thought he had a solid game. He was 19 of 25, 172 and a touchdown, but his long was 22. So he really didn't go downfield.
It was underneath.
That much. It was all underneath. Defensively, West Virginia, we talked a lot about this in the pregame. They were so bad against the run last year, like 110th or 103rd or something like that. They are now, after one game, of course that doesn't make a trend, but after one game, 51st in rush defense. They gave up 3.4 yards per carry, because that's an acceptable stat, right?
You'll take it. Yeah, you'll take that all day long.
And on first down, they gave up 4.4 yards, so not as good, but 4.4 yards, which is much better than last year on first down when they gave up about 6 yards, 5 to 6 yards on first down.
Yeah, and so that's why that first game.
That's improvement.
It's very much improvement. I think what I'm talking about assigning trends here in all seriousness, this Oklahoma offensive line is going to be much better than Tennessee's. I'm willing to bet Kansas State's offensive line that returns everybody is better than Tennessee's. Remember, Tennessee was awful. Just terrible last year at the offensive line. They thought they were better, and one of the reasons was that Brandon Kennedy at center. How did he do?
Well, they may not be any better on the offensive line.
Yeah, I don't know that they are, so be careful there.
That Tim Jordan was pretty good. He got 125 yards.
He was fine. My point just is you're going to see better offensive lines moving throughout the season as you did on Saturday from Tennessee.
Should we lead into this week's game? Penguins?
Don't know anything about it.
Or do you want to talk about NC State?
Well, no, we play one game at a time here.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, 3 guys before the game. We can't talk about 2 games from now. It's not 3 guys before 2 games from now.
Oh.
It's 3 guys before the game.
Well, it's a win on Saturday. It's a name your score on Saturday. All due respect to, is Jim Tressel the coach?
No, he's the president.
Oh, he is.
By the way, when you say with all due respect, you really don't mean it. You just said they're going to get slapped. You can't say with all due respect, they're going to get whacked, because that's not respectful. But they are going to get whacked.
I'll tell you what's not respectful. Butler 23, Youngstown State 21. That's not respectful.
This is going to be a different Youngstown State team than came in here against West Virginia a couple years ago and got to the national title game. So I think this, to me, as a look ahead, I know we'll do this later Thursday, but to me, this is all about getting some more guys some reps, get Stills and Greer their numbers, and then get Greer out of there and get Jack Allison some time and keep Greer preserved.
Jack Allison almost got in there.
He thought he was in.
You thought he was going to go in.
I don't know what that says. They called a timeout so they didn't have to take Greer out of the game there, Tony.
I don't think they take the timeout if the ball's at like the 40.
Yeah, but the ball was inside the 10,
inside
right?
the 10. He just
Poor Jack Allison, though. He's got that thing
agree.
strapped up. He's ready to walk out there. He hadn't played in like 16 years. He's taken 4 red shirts. He's been at 6 schools. He wanted to play. Give my man Jack Allison some reps.
I could see that coming, too. As soon as I saw Dana walk out there, I go, okay, I know what he's going to do here.
Well, we'll see Jack Allison Saturday. Agreed? I think the question just is how early can you get some of these backups in there on Saturday?
In a perfect world, you see Jack Allison, and you see Trey Lowe.
You do, because of the new redshirt rule where you can play 4 games.
Yeah.
That's a little unfortunate for the backup quarterback, if that is Jack Allison. That now you got to split some time with the other guy potentially.
All right, let's jump in here before we go away to the Big 12 as a whole. First off, we started with Oklahoma State last Thursday, and they were Oklahoma State-like. Took Missouri State, removed.
It's hard to tell because it was Missouri State, so it's hard to tell.
Yeah, but I mean,
why you don't want to assign a trend of the season on Oklahoma State?
It's not even relevant when I was talking about.
They were consistent. They scored double figures in every quarter. They scored 17, 14, 14, and 13. They got 58 to 17.
That was an awful Missouri State defense.
Yeah.
They weren't even on the screen some of the times.
During the offseason, there was a lot that was said. Just a kind of little bubble about Lane Kiffin going to play Oklahoma. Be careful.
A lot of people were loving Lane Kiffin in the offseason.
Be careful here. He just might. He's going to spend the whole summer kind of Xing and Oing, figuring things out. New quarterback at Oklahoma. He just might go in there and pull one of the all-times. No. By the end of the first quarter, it was 28 to 14.
You know why they didn't?
Excuse me, why?
Because Oklahoma's really good. I mean, we sat there and watched that game. I mean, they got guys. They were up 42-0 at halftime, and they won the game 63-14. And Kyler Murray, the replacement for Baker Mayfield, was very good and didn't play a whole lot. TCU He's quick.
Slapped Southern 55-7, and there was no scoring in the fourth quarter. So they put their quarterback down. I think it was in the second quarter. Sean Robinson.
Get out of there.
At
That's
halftime.
Southern. Play somebody.
Robinson, the quarterback for TCU, was responsible for 5 touchdowns. He'll run around out there. A big disappointment for me was Texas losing to Maryland 34-29. Second year in a row that Maryland has defeated Texas. 34-29 final score.
Tony, we watched that game during our pregame, and you're looking and go, midway through the second quarter, Texas is like 10 yards rushing or minus 10. Like, what are you doing?
Is Texas back?
You're Texas, and you can't.
They're back home in Austin right now. Yeah, they're
Come
back.
on, man, with that. Talk about off-season things. So many national people loving on Texas. And maybe they get better. Last year it didn't wreck their season, so can they rebound? I don't know. Maybe they're going to have to figure out a way. They got if Sam Ehlinger's their quarterback, you got to run Sam Ehlinger at 6'3", 225. You can't make that kid a drop-back passer and think you're going to win.
Want a stat? Maryland has now put together 5 FBS wins since October of 2016. 5 FBS
and 2
wins.
against Texas.
2 of them are against Texas.
And Maryland, I mean, all the problems they have had, all the issues there that have to weigh on them. Maybe they were playing inspired. I don't know because of that kid. But, I mean, if Texas is supposed to be what Texas is supposed to be, there's no way they lose that game. That was humiliating for Texas.
Another bad loss for the league was Ole Miss against Texas Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Texas Tech loses 47-27. 47-27. All off season, you heard that Texas Tech's defense had finally turned the corner. They were returning everyone. They returned like 98 starters on defense. Everything was going to be good.
Oh, you mean from a bad defense, they return all the starters?
No, they started now. They're down 24-7 at halftime. They're down 30 17 at the end of the first half, and they end up losing by a score of 47-27. That is not the kind of a start that you want. Yeah, they lost their quarterback as well with a high ankle sprain. That's not the kind of start that you want. Ole Miss has scored a touchdown now in the opening 40 seconds 3 times in its last 6 games. Three times in its last 6 games, they've scored a touchdown in the first 40 seconds.
They're really talented offensively, but I think you're right when you say that's not how Texas Tech, that knows it needs to improve the defense. That's always the story with Texas Tech. That is certainly not a good sign for them.
But wait, it gets worse.
It does.
Here we go.
Yeah, it does.
Nicholls State.
Nicholls now. They dropped the state.
Excuse me?
They dropped the state. It's Nicholls.
Where'd they put it?
I don't know.
Why'd they take it? I mean, why'd they
it's
do
just
that?
Nicholls.
It was there, then it was gone. Your thoughts?
Was that Memphis did that too? Memphis
used to be Memphis State back in the day when they were cheating a lot and winning that, going to Final Fours, and they dropped it.
Why do schools take the state off?
Don't know.
I mean, is Michigan State going to do it? No, we're just going to be Michigan. I mean, they can't do what? Why do schools take the state off?
I'm sure they have a valid reason. We'll have to find out what that is.
Can you call some of your people on those higher educations council
I'll check
boards?
in with the HEPC of.
All right, here's a bad one here, folks. Nicholls used to be state. Now they're just Nicholls. Beats Kansas 26-23 in overtime. David Beatty, the Kansas coach, now has more losses to FCS opponents than he has wins against FBS opponents. Jayhawks lost to South Dakota State in 2015. They lose to Nicholls 26-23. The lone FBS win came over Texas in 2016. Beatty's career record at Kansas is now 3-34. Next on the schedule this week, for some unknown reason to anyone in America, Kansas is going to Central Michigan. The Jayhawks,
they'll lose.
Well, they're due to win on the road. They've lost 46 in a row on the road, going back to UTEP 2009.
If I'm Kansas and I'm new AD Jeff Long, whatever time kickoff is supposed to be at Central Michigan, I tell Bill Self he must schedule an open practice session, allow the public in for free, and watch the basketball team, because that's all you need to discuss about Kansas the rest of the year.
I know people like David Beatty, and I don't want to be patronizing. He seems like a nice guy, but you got to fire him. You got to fire him and start over.
Well, the worst scenario for him is playing out in that he already got one AD fired, and as a result of that, the new AD comes in.
By the way, when the
buddy of yours, isn't he? Jeff Long, friend of yours, used to work together.
I know Jeff.
Were you together at any point? Kentucky or
no.
where are you? Kansas?
Never worked together.
Oh, but you know how you guys know?
He was the former Pitt athletic director, so we had to work together on some initiatives.
Does Kingsbury get fired too?
He's got to win some games. Now he gets more rope, obviously, being an alum, but he's got to win some games.
But he's gotten that rope for a couple of years.
He has. You're right.
So when does that rope run out?
Got to see where they end up. If that was not the way they wanted to start.
A lot of rope in West Texas. Big cowboy thing. They got a lot of rope.
You're not done, because I think one of the more alarming results is still to come here. Go ahead.
Baylor?
No.
Abilene Christian, 55-27.
No, Baylor doing Baylor things, not playing anybody. That's a surprise.
Iowa State, South Dakota State was called off.
It was.
K-State barely winning. Is that what you're talking about?
The Kansas State game, because there's a game, we anoint Bill Snyder, and rightfully so, because he's done some unbelievable things, call him the Wizard. That was a game for me, looking at West Virginia, that you were really, what are you going to do here? So Kansas State's a school to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks. You know they're going to get better. You know he's going to get it. They do. But that, to me now, as a home game for West Virginia, doesn't have the same fear factor that it did. Now, let me get back to you when we get to the week of, but that's disappointing if you're Kansas State in a big way, because they have both the quarterbacks back. They're one of the few schools that they don't have an answer because they like them both, but they almost lost that game.
They were down
late.
24-12 going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
They were down.
And it was only a missed field goal at the buzzer by South Dakota that allowed that win for K-State, so look out there. They've got to be bummed out in Manhattan today.
With the start of the season, that means 3 guys before the game goes not once, but twice every week. We'll be back here on Thursday, and we'll drop and by then we'll have all the details, press conferences. We'll know more what Bo Pelini is going to do. We'll get you some update.
Breakdown.
Yeah, we'll give you the breakdown.
So we're not going to talk Ryan Finley on Thursday, NC State's quarterback?
No, that's 3 guys before the next game, not 2 games.
Brad's already moved on.
Okay.
He's already moved on.
Be patient. The season goes by fast enough as it is.
You don't want me to fast forward?
Hold your water.
All right.
Hey, folks, if you would, let people know that you like to listen to Three Guys Before the Game. If, in fact, you do like listening to Three Guys Before the Game, spread the word and subscribe on iTunes. That helps out. Watch it, spread it, do whatever you can. Thanks so much for being with us. Three Guys Before the Game, our post-Tennessee edition. The meeting is adjourned. See ya.